Hey there, welcome to the Breakthrough Creative. I am your host, John McDavitt, and this is the place where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. And today we're going to be talking about structuring your pricing for your clients. What on earth does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean we're going to talk about actual amounts you should be charging your clients. We're going to break down 5 different ways you can structure your deal and your pricing for your clients, and what the benefits and what the cons may be with each one of these. So before I get into that, I want to ask you a favor, please. If you are listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, would you please take a moment and subscribe to the show? Real easy, just go to the subscription button. Did I say that word even right? You can just go to the subscription button and you can give it a click. And then the same, if you're watching the show on YouTube, you can just scroll down to the red subscription button, give it a tap, and then boom, you are subscribed to the Breakthrough Creative. It's a really encouraging thing for you to do for the show. I really appreciate it, and I believe it helps the show to rise up through the ranks of all the other shows so people can go, oh, look, there's a lot of people following this show. There must be beneficial information. It's helpful. I'm going to give it a try. So thank you so much. And as always, please share this with the artists in your life. I know that they're going to be helped by the information in these episodes from the knowledgeable guests and hopefully from some of my own experiences. So with that being said, what are the 5 pricing structures that you can use on projects for your clients? Well, they are 1, in no particular order, by the way, I just listed them out. 1, hourly based. 2, project based fees. 3, value pricing. 4, licensing. And 5, you can have a retainer with a client. So some of these are pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to break them down right now. Hourly based is just what it is. It's hourly based. You come up with an agreed upon hourly rate for your client to work on their project or to go work at their place of business. Or a lot of people who are employees of companies do this. And as much as you work hourly is what you get paid. So what are the pros of that? Well, it's pretty cut and dry. You know what you're going to earn. You know how long you're going to work. Fantastic. What are the cons? Well, the cons are you are trading time for money. And I never like trading time for money because there's a ceiling on your earnings. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much energy that you have. And if somebody says they're going to pay for 20 hours and you get the work done, they give you 20 hours worth. Now, a real drawback is when your skills exceed your hourly rate value. Meaning, if you're charging somebody, say, $20 an hour, and you can get something done now 3, 4, 5 times as fast as somebody else, you're actually losing money because it might take somebody else 3 hours to do. So that would be $60 somebody would be paying for that kind of labor in that amount of time, as opposed to you getting it done in 1 hour or a half an hour and you're making $10 or $20. You're making a third or a sixth of what somebody else might be making because they're slower. So that's just something to consider. I started running into that a little bit into my career, and I was like, man, this stinks. I'm actually losing money on this deal because I am good at what I do and I'm highly efficient, and my knowledge wasn't taken into account if I caught things that maybe an engineer might have missed. So there's just a lot of negatives in regard to the hourly based structuring of your pricing. The next one is project-based structure, okay? So what does that mean? Well, as opposed to hourly, where you're working a certain amount of hours and you know that you're getting paid hourly, the project-based structure is you break down the project and then you give the client one price. So it's really nice because you can take a look at something and say, well, I think it might take me this long, and there's this kind of expertise going into it, and I know that this is a specialty of mine, and then you can come up with a price based around that. And maybe the client wants to negotiate the rate, so you have the opportunity to negotiate, but you don't have somebody looking over your shoulder the whole time. You're not worried about keeping track of hours unless you want to know how long it is actually taking you to do it, which is not an unwise thing to do. You might want to know that. How efficient are you, or where did you go right on this particular job, or where did you go wrong on this particular job? And then the other thing about project-based is that it seems to attract clients that aren't interested in hourly. If a client is coming to you and they're going to give you a project, and it's a project-based agreement, chances are they recognize your expertise and they're not going to be writing you the whole time to cut your hours, because it doesn't matter, because they know what the price is. And you're probably bringing something to the table that other people may not be. And that's just a really good thing. Project-based is a good place to be. Most of what I do is project-based. Now, the one thing you want to watch out for in project-based is you want to have some limitations on the amount of time spent, and even maybe the amount of changes. Like, the further along in the project that you get, meaning, the closer you get to the deadline, you want to have fewer and fewer surprises or changes. So when you start out with your agreement, what I do anyway is I work out a concept phase. I work out like a tighter rendering or illustration phase, since I illustrate and render, and then I have a final art phase. And with each of those phases, I have an initial round of drawings or sketches or colors that I do, and then up to 2 rounds of revisions for each one. Now, you can adjust it however you want. If you want less rounds of revisions, just want 1, or if you want 3, whatever it is, whatever works for you and works for your client, work that out. But I find 2 rounds is perfect, and it gives enough room that if there's any error or mistake in communication, either side, it's all worked out in those 2 rounds. Now, say you get to a 3rd round of revisions, and that's not in the agreement, but it needs to happen. Well, now I let my client know if we get to a 3rd round, then there's going to be an additional fee. And, that additional fee is going to be based on what's happening at that moment. So if it's a substantial change, or there's a substantial amount of work that has popped up in addition in this project that nobody foresaw, you're protected, right? And you can give them a price on that. So what's really nice about that is it protects everybody, really. It keeps the project moving along. It makes for milestones where you have to share progress with your client. So if anything's wrong or there's a miscommunication, it's seen early, and so there are no surprises. You don't want to surprise your clients. I don't want to surprise my clients. I want everything to go as smoothly as possible, and I want the communication to be really clear. I want to know that they know what I'm doing, and I want to understand exactly where they want me to go. So I love project-based, and it's much more profitable, I have found, than is hourly. All right, we come to our 3rd way to structure your pricing, and that is value-based. So what is value-based? Well, value-based is like the painting behind me. Let's say that I put this tiger up online for sale, and I say $12,000, or I put it out in a gallery and it's $12,000, and somebody walks by and they say, "Oh, I love this, I want it," and they pull out their Visa or MasterCard and they purchase it. They have bought something that is value-based. There is a price on it that doesn't necessarily match the cost of materials put into it, and who knows how much time somebody spent on something. I mean, I could have spent 500 hours on this, or I could have spent maybe 10, 15 hours on it. And so there's a value that the customer sees in the piece of art, and they go, "Oh, wow, I really like this, so I'll buy it." Or they walk by it and go, "Oh, I wouldn't hang that in my bathroom." And that's okay, because not everybody is my customer, and the ones that I'm really interested in are the ones who perceive the value of the work that I am creating. So it's not like they're looking at the canvas and they're looking at the stretcher bars and they're accounting for how much the paint was and wondering how much time I spent as far as coming up with the price. They're just looking at the final number and going, okay, yeah, value based. This is a $12,000 painting. I'll take it. So the pros of that are it's an excellent opportunity to earn. The cons is that it's can be challenging to find a market, right? So there are lots of painters, artists out there who are trying to sell their work, and what you're really trying to do is find, those 100 to 1,000 people really that would love your work, and so you're trying to whittle it down to people who would purchase your look, your brand, if you will, and that can take some time. You may stumble onto something every now and then, but it can take time to build up that kind of a market. But if you're willing to, be in it for the long game, which, I'm in it for the long game. We should all be in it for the long game, but particularly where value-based pricing is you need to build up a following. Although, there are exceptions to every rule. So don't let me rain on your parade if you're going to go out there and do it and make $1 million. More power to you. The next pricing-based structure is licensing. So licensing is really interesting because it's where you take a brand or an IP, an intellectual property, and you grant another business or person the rights to sell something based on your intellectual property. So, for instance, J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter books, and there's all kinds of product out there, including movies. And so she granted licensing rights to every company that makes anything Harry Potter, and in turn, she receives compensation. So licensing is a really interesting one because, again, it's almost like the value pricing where you're going to create a brand or you create a story or it's some kind of intellectual property that is yours, and there's enough interest in it that companies see that they could make a profit if they put pictures of your work on towels and toothpaste and toys and movies and books and t-shirts, and you're going to make money based off of what it is that they're selling. So it's a percentage rate that you will be getting paid back off of however you negotiate the sales, right? Because it can be off of the net, it could be off of the gross, it could be, and it all varies all over the place. And at that point, if you have somebody that is very interested in your work or multiple companies that are interested, probably a good idea to get a lawyer and a contract in place because you want to make sure that all that stuff is buttoned down. I had some experience with licensing where it wasn't huge numbers, but all of a sudden, toward the end of one of the years, I had a $2,500 check show up. And I was like, what is this for? And it was for royalties, licensing royalties based off of some work that I had done. And man, I'll tell you what, going to your mailbox and finding a $2,500 check there for some work that you did earlier that year, that's pretty nice. That's a lot of fun. So licensing is a really interesting part of the pricing structure for your business. And I think it's something that everybody should examine, especially if you're building a brand. And then the final one that I could think of was a retainer. So what's a retainer? Well, a retainer is when a company or an organization or a person sees that you have a specific value to their operations. And so they say, hey, I think rather than paying you hourly based, project based, value, all this stuff, I am going to put you on retainer. So you work out your terms, which could be something like what I had with the company for about a decade. And the terms were I got a monthly check, no matter what. I had a monthly payment that they would make to me, and that was a certain amount. and then I was on call. So I needed to be available to them. Or if they had some corporate or consumer education that needed to happen, they'd call me up and say, hey, John, we'd like you to fly to Boston a week from Thursday. Can you head over there, and you're going to stay for 2 days, and this is what we're going to send, and here's the brief. And so I would say, yeah, if my schedule was clear, or I'd have to clear my schedule, and I would make my way out there. And apart from then getting paid my regular retainer, my monthly retainer, I would also get a day rate. So I had a day rate, and I had a per diem in there. And the per diem is to cover food and maybe some travel, and it just covers costs that you would normally eat out of your refrigerator at home, or you have a car at home, and while you're away you don't have any of those things. So the company takes care of that as well. So what are the benefits of a retainer? Well, it's fantastic to have that guaranteed money coming in every month, and then to be valued in such a way that a client is going to send you somewhere, or they're going to be sending you work, and then you're making additional monies on top of the monthly. What are the drawbacks? Well, the drawbacks can be maybe they need you to go somewhere for 2 weeks. Maybe there's something that suddenly comes up and you have to be away on a loved one's birthday. So there are certain give and takes with retainers that you need to really be aware of. And again, you'd want to work out the terms and know what you're committing to. So there you go. These are the 5 structures that I have used and that I could think of for my pricing for my clients. Not a big fan of hourly based for the reasons of having a ceiling over me as far as earnings go, and then also having the issue of trading my time for money. I don't want to trade my time for money. Project-based fees are fantastic if you work out the terms of the agreement well. If you have limitations on how many changes can be made, or every step along the way somebody is approving it, and then if you have like 1 or 2 revisions for each step, and then you go to a third, and you let the client know, hey, there's going to be an additional fee here if we have to take action on this. And then value-based pricing is cool. Some people just find a market for their work. They're so unique. It's so specialized what they do that people will pay larger amounts of money, and they don't care how long it took. And then licensing is a neat one too, because if you have a brand that really takes off and you license it out, that can turn into really crazy big bucks. And then lastly, the retainer, where you're connected to a company that values what it is that you bring to the table, and then you get this monthly payment, and then potential extra earnings out of that are all pretty good. And you can mix and match these together too. Like maybe you have somebody purchases this painting behind me, so that's a value structured pricing, and they don't own the rights to the actual image. Like I still, if they own the painting, I still own the copyright for the original art. And that's something, that you'd want to put in your contract, talk to your lawyer and all that. But they take this tiger and you want to put it on puzzles across the world, and it's going to go on to placemats, and it's going to be made into prints, and so there are all these extra ways to earn off of it. And so you've got a value-based price, and you've got a licensing fee that's going on. 2 different clients, could be the same client, but you have 2 opportunities there to mix and match the pricing. So lots of exciting things you can do with pricing. Be creative, be courageous about negotiating with your clients. Try and get fair value for everything you do. And if you have any questions about these, you can email me. If you would like this list that I have, kind of with the pros and cons listed out, you can email me, and I'd be glad to talk to you, and I'll email you back. I'll send you back the list. So you can email me at john@thebreakthroughcreative.com, and that email address is down below. And I thank you so much for being here. I hope that this helps to square away any kind of hazy edges, fuzzy edges around pricing structures, and how there are more than a couple of ways to price yourself, and there are even more than just a couple of ways of pricing. You can mix and match some of these together and see what works best for you and for your client. And maybe you look at these and go, I would never ever do a retainer. And if somebody offers you a retainer, then you've kind of made your decision, and you can also explain to them why. And that may help to bring you guys even closer in a deal for the work that you're going to do for them. So that is our episode for this week. I hope it was helpful, and I hope that you are getting busy about the business of creating art to serve your clients with what it is that you create so that you can make a living from it. All right. Until next time, I'm John McDavitt for the Breakthrough Creative, and we'll see you then. Cheers.